All right, folks, coming up here in the rest of hour number 2, we're going to be joined by Jim Daniels and Terrence Copper. Before Jim joins us, I want to give a shout-out to our friends over at the Gridiron Greats organization. Folks, please help support a wonderful cause taking care of the guys who left so much of themselves out on the field. Remember, folks, these are the guys who played way back when they still had to get off-season jobs to support themselves and their families. It is organizations like this one started by Mike Ditka. Again, the Gridiron Greats that are trying to help these guys that we all grew up watching and reading about. Please go online to gridirongreats.org to see what you can do and to get involved. All right, now back with us here on Thursday Night Tailgate is Jim Daniels. Jim has had a tremendous career so far in radio. He is a radio host out in L.A. for 95.5 KLOS NBC Sports Radio. He has hosted shows on Fox Sports. He's been a program director for CBS Radio in San Diego and for All Pro Broadcasting in Riverside, California. Jim owns the weekends, folks. He hosts shows on Saturday afternoons on KLOS from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. He kicks off Sunday mornings co-hosting the Sports on Tap show from 7 to 9 a.m. Pacific time. Then he does the Jim Daniels Show, which airs on 170 stations across the country. He also does Speaking of Sports, which is also on Sunday mornings on 90 stations across the country. So, folks, if you're listening to Sports Talk Radio over the weekend, it's probably Jim you're listening to, and if you're not, you should be. And we're excited that he is back with us again tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Jim, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Jim.
Chris, Bob, man, I'm tired. I want to go take a nap after listening to all of that.
No doubt you do, my friend. So, Jim, I want to start off by getting your thoughts on the Rams. I've been having a debate with our good friend, former Rams Pro Bowl quarterback Jim Everett, that the majority of the people in L.A. either don't really care that the Rams are back in L.A. and in large part never knew or cared that they left. How are sports fans reacting locally to this team that has really exceeded expectations so far this season?
Yeah, you know what? The L.A. sports fan are getting treated, well, minus the World Series, and I don't want to talk about that. I'd rather stick a pencil in my eye than talk about that. But in Los Angeles, football is kind of a treat because the Rams came back, and guess what? They're good this year. But the Chargers, this is where the problem are. I mean, people, you have the old Ram fans who pulled their gear out and immediately accepted the team. I grew up here. I was a Rams fan as a kid. When they left, I said, that's it. This is what I do for a living and as a fan. And you guys, you left town on me? I'm not going to root for the St. Louis Rams. Thank you, goodbye. And then they promptly went out and won a Super Bowl as soon as they left town. Made me hate them even more. So when they came back, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be you're back now, let's get back together. I'm not doing that. And in typical Ram fashion, they're punishing me for it. But Ram fans are really getting a treat because we knew Gurley was not as bad last year. And everybody said, offensive line. Look, the fact that they've turned this offense loose, Jared Goff is a little bit older, a little bit wiser. Todd Gurley has got a little bit more creative design going into the game, and these guys are, like you said, exceeding all expectations. But the Chargers are the one that no one cares about. I mean, you go to a game at the StubHub Center, and I don't care who they're playing. If it's the Broncos, it's a sea of orange. If they're playing the Chiefs from halfway across the country, it's a sea of red, and they're crazy when Kareem Hunt scores or Tyreek scores or something like that. I mean, it sucks to be almost said it, San Diego, sucks to be an L.A. Charger right now.
So, Jim, your thought, what has allowed Sean McVay to come in there and be an immediate hit? Jeff Fisher was never able to get this team over 500, yet this kid comes in as the head coach, and boom, immediately this team is probably one of the best teams in the NFC right now.
They're one of the most fun teams to watch. They had some good parts on defense. They had some good parts on offense, so Sean is lucky in what he inherited. But, I mean, it just shows you how, old and out of touch somebody, Jeff Fisher, who's not an old, the guy's got a long gray beard and a cane. He's not that old, but you know what? The game has passed him to where it is, and Sean McVay is showing everybody how we should be doing it. I mean, he's freed Todd Gurley to the point of where this has got to be the happiest guy in the NFL, and not just because of touchdowns, because somebody's figured out how to use him. So, yeah, McVay, I mean, everybody is, what a copycat league it is. Everybody's looking at this, and everybody's going to be looking at younger guys, and how do we get younger and think smarter and get more creative, and really all they got to do is look at the college game. Those guys are great when it comes to creativity every week, but they think, that won't work in the pros. But no, McVay, he looks like a genius right now, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. Bob, questions for Jim?
Tim, it's great to speak with you again, and I want to get back to a little bit about the Chargers because, I've been watching Phillip Rivers, obviously, as long as Eli Manning, and it's almost like his legacy, Jim, will go down as being, an above-average quarterback that was always maybe that one or two players away from going all the way. I mean, he's doing okay this year again, has the one great receiver, one good running back, but he always, any game I see of him out here on the East Coast, Jim, he always looks frustrated. He's been looking frustrated his entire career. Always seems like he's going uphill. What do you think his legacy will be, and is his time almost up?
That's a great question, Bob, and I think I'm right. I'm just in the right spot to answer this for you too, because again, I'm born and raised Southern California, and although I was a Ram fan as a kid in the 70s and the 80s and that, you couldn't help but like the Chargers. Here was the little Chargers down in San Diego, and man, were they fun to watch because they'd score 50, 60 points a game. Dan Fouts, Joyner, Jefferson, all those guys, Air Coryell, it was a blast to watch. So we knew about that, but they never won anything either. And the people of Southern California remember them all fondly. JJ and Dan, of course, is still on TV all the time, and so he's around, and people remember them fondly. And I think Charger fans will remember Phillip Rivers fondly. I mean, this is a guy who on his tombstone somebody should write, "It wasn't my fault." Because this guy came to play every single week. Son of a coach, knows how to play, knows how to communicate. Sure, he's a bit of a prima donna, but show me a quarterback that's successful that isn't. No, Phillip Rivers is going to go down as one of the great Charger quarterbacks of all time, and I really feel bad for him having to be stuck in this situation in Los Angeles. He never wanted to go there in the first place. A bunch of them are that way. I'm going to say this, Spanos are bad owners. They should never have left San Diego. Come on, you telling me that you can't find somebody to partner with you in the NFL that won't come to San Diego, California, and partner with you to build a stadium? Really? How bad a businessman are you?
And Jim, how about a team like what's the view of a team like Oakland out in Southern California? This is a team obviously that has had ties to your area. There's been talk forever of them coming back or going here or Vegas. It's just like a Bermuda Triangle out there for Oakland, but they still got their following and they still follow that team out there. But are there a lot of Oakland fans still in Southern California?
This is another fun question for me to answer. And, part of our job is to antagonize people. That's what we get paid to do for a living. So I love to torture people around here and tell them I'm a Raider fan. I jump from the Rams to the Raiders because Raiders are the only team to win a Super Bowl in Los Angeles. And, Ram fans are irate and Charger fans, flip out and don't want to hear it. And so that's just a fun way to rub people the wrong way. But the Raiders are absolutely, and I say this right now, the way the Rams are playing, the Raiders are still the number one team in L.A.
Wow.
No doubt.
Really?
No question. Not close. I mean, look at the TV ratings if you want numbers, but I can tell you, living here, people I talk to, what I see in people's cars and what they're wearing and all that kind of stuff, and they've been gone for a long time. But you know what? They won a Super Bowl, and people remember that, and they're not that far away, and lots of people love that, silver and black, man. They like that bad boy thing, and, it's easy to like for people down here. No question in my mind that's the number one NFL team in L.A.
So, but to that point, Jim, the Raiders are a team that, both Bob and I thought were going to go far this season, with Carr coming back and being
Yep.
healthy and the offense that they had, and you sort of throw Marshawn in there. We thought maybe he'd have some fresh legs, at least be good around the goal line, and that defense would improve, and so far not so much. So, as good as the Rams are, right, surprising everybody, the opposite side of that coin, I feel like, is as disappointing as the Raiders have been. Is that accurate? Is that how folks are looking at it out there?
I can't say that the public looks at it, but I think it's dead on. I think I look at that, and that's a head scratcher to me. You've got a very talented quarterback. I don't know what the hell's wrong with Amari Cooper, but I don't know if it's scheming or I don't know what that is, because you got a guy on the other side. You got Crabtree too. There's no excuses for that. This team should perform better. Marshawn, come on, that was a dart throw. Everybody knew that was a dart throw. Is he going to be Marshawn or is he going to be Marshawn? And I think they're getting a little bit of both and getting suspended and stuff like that. Khalil Mack and them need a little bit more help, I think, on defense. It must be that. I mean, they're in a tough division, but it's like, they win and lose at the wrong times. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's the way it looks to me. To me, the Raiders' biggest head-scratcher in the league this year.
So, Jim, we can't have you on, and I know you want to get your pen out, but we can't have you on without getting the local thought on how everyone has reacted to the Dodgers. Is it a successful season, even though they came one win short of a World Series title? Are they still happy, or are folks upset?
Man, you are throwing fastballs tonight. Listen. Again, born and raised in Southern California, and probably Dodgers my number one team. Football, I went sideways on football when they left town, so Lakers are number two. And so, I'm lucky as being an LA sports fan, and Lakers and the Dodgers have provided me with a lot of championships in my lifetime. And, that's what you have to do when you're a fan of a big team and you got a bunch of stuff. You have to, like an old guy, you got to lean on the glory days. Until it comes back around again. But as a Dodger fan, we've been waiting for this organization to get their act together while you've got somebody like Clayton Kershaw so that you can do something, make a mark. When you win a championship, that stays forever. Records are great, scoreless innings, wonderful. Championships is what it's about. That's where you make your mark. And the organization hasn't done the best that they could do or should have done for Clayton Kershaw up until this year. And you get up to this year, and they exceeded all expectations, and you had, a rookie come in and blow everybody's mind, hitting home runs, and then, you're sure going to win it. And then the owner comes out, Magic Johnson, a guy with all kinds of championship rings around his neck. Oh, we're going to win it all. Thanks for the extra pressure. And you're okay with everything right up until Game 6. You knew it was going to go long. People saying, what about a Dodgers sweep? Screw you, you're trying to jinx my team. No, we knew it was going 7, but to get to Game 7 and melt down at the doorstep is crushing because, number one, are you out of your mind? Yu Darvish, Clayton Kershaw, one in one hand, one in the other. I'm doing that weighing thing. Yu Darvish, Clayton Kershaw, Yu Darvish. He told him he wanted the ball. And you put Yu Darvish in Game 7 of the World Series. And I'm still okay with that. But when you send him back out there for the second inning, somebody should have come and got you. And when you let him stay out there until they hit the home run, now we're talking snipers and hitmen and blow your car up and
I think we lost Jim, actually. As I look at the board, I think we lost Jim. Hopefully we get him back on. But, Bob, that's sort of the question, right? When you're going back and you're assessing what happened, you got to the doorstep. To Jim's point, what's the opinion of Dave Roberts, right? Was he a successful manager, or do you crush him locally because of the decision for what happened in Game 7 and not either going with Kershaw outright, or at least going to him pretty darn quickly earlier than what he did? I don't know. What did you think?
Totally agree with him, Chris. I mean, you Darvish, I don't think there's any Dodger fans that had a good feeling going into that game with him taking the mound. And again, when it's all hands on deck, there is no tomorrow. I still want the best pitcher in baseball taking the ball, not rested or not. It was going to be one of those games where we're going to piecemeal a game anyway, Chris, 4 or 5 innings, maybe from a guy, maybe. But I would want Kershaw pitching those 4 instead of Yu Darvish. I think that was a no-brainer. And, again, it maintained his record. I mean, you and I remember Dave Roberts for some good things, but that was not his shining moment.
And Kershaw as a guy, Bob, that was maligned, right, for his postseason, struggles. And when you look at this postseason, okay, right? He had a couple of good starts, a couple of bad starts, and one okay start, and then, the very good job he did in relief in Game 7. So I don't know. I don't know if the way you look at it, is the monkey still on his back, for what he's done, or is it enough to say that you still can't count on this guy?
It's a very unique thing, Chris. I don't think there's any question the guy is the best pitcher on the planet overall, and his innings were a little down this year because, again, he had missed some time with the back. And that actually probably turned out to be a good thing for them. Kept his innings down this year. But, yeah, I think the jury's still out, Chris. He still has that kind of monkey on his back. He showed great signs here and there, but has the distinction now of giving up most home runs in a playoff series, I believe. That was one of the things that went down. And you just don't expect that from the best pitcher in the game, a guy that's earning $30 million a year. You expect a little more. So, again, I think they have a lot to prove. And, you almost hope for L.A. fans and for guys like Kershaw and Roberts that they do win one of these years. But to get that close, Chris, and kind of let it slip away a little bit. I had picked them to win it all this year, and just almost did it. But man, I could hear the disappointment in Jim's voice. That was a tough one to take if you're an LA person.
And we've got Jim back on the show, and Jim, in the time when we lost you, we were talking about Dave Roberts, his first season there as or manager, I should say, for the Dodgers. Is he being crushed locally for not going to Kershaw earlier in Game 7?
Not as hard as I'm hitting them, but there is some of that, and I'm sure that like the local station that carries him, they're probably telling him to ease off, a little bit, because he did do a great job. I mean, honestly, this is again what makes it so crushing is it was fine, everything was great until you got to Game 7, and you know what? You can't blame Dave Roberts for the way those guys approached hitting in Game 7 of the World Series in their own park against a bunch of, no disrespect, I don't mean this, but a bunch of nobodies. I mean, it's not like they were up against, this vaunted pitching staff, that with this bullpen and starters and that, that were going to blow them away. That's not what happened. And, congratulations to them for finding better game than the Dodgers could find. But, I mean, come on. That lineup, what, $275 million? Nobody but Andre Ethier? Wow.
And the other thing we were talking about is, when you look at Kershaw, right, he's been kind of maligned for his postseason performances in the past. And when you look at this postseason, he had a couple of good starts. He had a couple of bad starts. He had, sort of one okay one in there, and then obviously the good job in relief in game. But is the monkey off his back now for postseason performances, or is he going to have to continue to do it, long into the future before people forget about his 4+ ERA in the postseason?
I think Clayton would tell you, he wouldn't talk about this, but I think he would tell you that the monkey's not off his back and won't be until he's got a ring on his finger. I mean, that's, someone of this caliber, this kind of talent, this is just what we expect, not as a Dodger fan, but as a baseball fan. You got to watch this guy rack up Cy Youngs, and you just expect, a World Series shot and sooner or later, the championship. That's what has to happen. It's such a wasted opportunity if a guy that talented, that gifted, doesn't get to the top of the mountain. Certainly wouldn't be the first time, but that's what he needs. I mean, they've won. They got into the playoffs before. Now they've got a pennant. I mean, that's great, but it's not the top of the mountain, and no, it doesn't get the monkey off the ball.
Bob, a couple more before we let Jim go.
Yeah, again, I want to just stay on baseball for a minute. Jim, you've been watching the game a long time, and what's most telling to me is the starting pitching position these days and what it might be a couple of years down the road. It's almost like if you pitch 5 innings and you give up 2 runs, 3 earned runs or less, Jim, you get a standing ovation. And I go back long enough to remember guys like Bob Gibson, Mickey Lolich. I don't want to age myself, but I know it's a totally different game here. But Chris and I have talked about this before. Are we going to get to the point where teams are going to have, there's going to be like, guys are going to pitch 3-4 innings tops, and it's going to be like a 3-4 man game all the time? Because everyone that comes in, Jim, is thrown in the high 90s. Tommy John is cosmetic. It's so much different. It's changing a lot. But how are you still going to justify paying these guys $25 million and up when they're just part-time players?
Another great question. I think that's where the game is going. I think because of analytics, and I'm not a fan of that necessarily. I think everything in moderation. Take some of it, don't live by it. But I think that part of that is forcing them to compartmentalize the game, and I think you're right. I think they're maybe looking at half the game. They're thinking, like, if our starter can get us, 4+, and then let our bullpen take over. But, you're going to have to expand your bullpen. How much money you pay for people? Yeah, less work. It means you're going to need more guys. You start talking to people about, okay, everybody's got to take less. We can afford to do what we need to do here. But, there's that. And, there's the other thing in the game that I heard talked about, and I wish you could give them credit. I don't know who it was, but they were talking about hitting. And they were talking about, how some of these younger players, these kids in their 20s, launching these balls out of the park from down by their ankles. And we've seen players do that before. I've seen Vladimir Guerrero, do it, for a long time. But they're saying these guys are practicing by hitting off of a tee. And, they're becoming, like, more specialized at being sluggers, and not necessarily a slugger because they're not big guys, but guys who launch or lift the ball. So, like, the hitting approach is different. This is one of the things that people are attributing the big home run barrage this year to, is the way that they're teaching these guys how to hit the ball, like off of a tee from like 10 inches off the ground. And I think that and the specialized hitting, boy, I don't have the crystal ball, but I'm curious to see where the game is going to go with the combination of those two things. It sounds exciting.
And last question, quickly. I want to just switch over to basketball for 1 minute, Jim. I got to ask you about the Lonzo Ball thing in the Lakers. I mean, here on the East Coast, between him, his father, and brother, and this and that, and I mean, him not shooting, he can't throw the ball in the ocean. I mean, what's give us the latest on Lonzo Ball and the soap opera, better known as Lonzo Ball in Los Angeles.
Here's where Magic Johnson really needs to share his expertise with us. And when he says, relax, everything's okay, we can believe that. When he comes out next year and tells us the Dodgers are going to win it all, we're going to tell him to go back to Staples Center or whatever. But, if you're a Laker fan, you have to buy into this kid. And unfortunately, you have to take the baggage that comes with him, and now apparently his brothers. And I don't want to get into that because that's a whole other conversation. But strictly with the Lakers and Lonzo, I see talent there. I think I see at least some of what Magic sees. The guy has great court vision. He's small. He's a kid. He needs to put weight on. He needs experience. But, the Lakers, the media, not just local media, but the media all over the place has been selling L.A. basketball fans on the fact that LeBron James is coming here next summer, or any number of other free agents, or any combination of free agents, because there's an empty throne at Staples Center with this Lakers logo on top of it. They got a bunch of great players. You plug in the superstar, who knows what happens? I mean, you will have to face the Warriors in your own division. You have to deal with that. But, you get in a short series and you take your chances. So when it comes to Lonzo, it's like this whole season, Laker fans know this isn't going anywhere. It's like endure this one more season, and then let's see what we hit in the lottery next year with free agents, and then we'll have a basketball team. And then this kid will be a little bit bigger, a little bit smarter, a little bit better. I mean, in the meantime, come on, you guys see talent, right? I mean, he may not be able to shoot the ball from night to night, but that's not really what he's there for. He's there to be, a facilitator. And, maybe I got my Laker goggles on, but I see talent there, and he just needs time, in my opinion.
Jim, before we let you go, remind our listeners, how can they follow you and listen to your shows? Like I say, you're all over. How can they stay up to date with all the great things you're doing, plus check you out on social media as well?
I do a bunch of crazy stuff, but, thankfully, because of the way our business is these days, there's lots of ways to get stuff on podcast and on demand and stuff like that. But, yeah, NBC Sports Radio, Sunday mornings do the Jim Daniels Show. Also on Sunday mornings do a show called Speaking of Sports, which, I really love a lot. I've got a guy, Rick Horrow, that I've known for 16 years. I worked with another network who is just, this guy's written a couple of books on, one of them is The Art of the Deal. I mean, this guy's a Harvard-educated insider that, really knows about endorsements and stuff like that. So, he's been with me for several years. It's a great show. And then I haven't ever been able to get my rock and roll yayas out, so I still work for KLOS in Los Angeles. I do a music show, just, straight DJ, classic rock stuff on Saturday, which I just absolutely love. And then Sunday mornings we do a sports show on KLOS called Sports on Tap. And we do a 2-hour show that was originally an idea to do something before football, fantasy football and stuff like that during football season. And that was a couple of years ago, and we've been there ever since. So it's pretty fun stuff.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for taking time out of your night to come back on this show. It's been great for Bob and I to get to catch up with you. We hope you'll come back and do it again sometime soon. Share more of your insights and your stories with us. You're fantastic, my friend.
Always fun to be on the show. Chris, Bob, love being on the show here and giving you some LA perspective. I'm not bashful about my age. Drysdale was my guy, so that tells you what I feel about how many innings guys should pitch. Yeah, anytime, guys, anytime.
Thank you, Jim. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
Talk again.
Thanks
Jim.
so much.
That is Jim Daniels. Again, he's on KLOS out in LA, and he's Saturdays and Sundays are all about Jim Daniels. If you want to know sports and you love sports talk, you can find him all over the place on both Saturday afternoons from 1 to 6, and then pretty much all day on Sunday as well. So Jim's fantastic, Bob. Just like we said with Danielle prior to Jim coming on, love guys that have a lot of enthusiasm in their voice, and Jim's got a lot of great opinions and a lot of great insights, and hopefully we get him back on the show real soon.
We're so privileged, Chris, to have guys like Jim for the L.A. area, Bo Bach for Atlanta, Paul Alexander for Pittsburgh. These are the gurus of their respective towns, and it's an honor to speak with these guys. It truly is. It blows me away just hearing their knowledge about the entire town that they're associated with, and always love talking to James.
Yes, we do. All right, we've got our next guest, Terrence Copper, hanging on the line. We'll get to Terrence on the other side of this quick station break.